right, okay, let's get started.
Hi, everybody. It's Thursday. Welcome back. My name is Ryan Selvy. I'm a motion designer, and I'm your host for today's show. I'm taking over Adobe Live all this week. Today's our last day, actually, but we have two great shows lined up for you today, and we're starting off with Chelsea Beck today. I am excited because we went to school together, and she's a fantastic illustrator. She's done editorial design. She's done brand design. And I'm really excited to walk through all the stuff that she has going on, both currently and in the past, and her inspiration. Welcome to everybody who is in the chat. Thank you guys for being here. This is a live stream. So if you are watching the replay, I promise I'll make it worth your while. Thank you to Annika Agarwal for being our lovely moderator. I appreciate you. And then hello to Oliver Andrews as well in the chat. If you guys have any questions as we are working through this interview, by all means, please throw them in the chat and I will relay them to Chelsea. Any comments, questions, you name it. Happy to have the conversation go both ways. So please hop on in and say hello. I was trying to do my best to give the best warm-up talk for Chelsea, but nothing's going to do better than herself. So please give a very warm welcome to Chelsea.
Hi,
Chelsea. Good morning. How's it going?
It's going pretty good. It's not bad.
Oh, well, I guess now it's technically afafternoon, but good afternoon.
It's going to be morning until like 4 p.m., I think.
Okay, cool. We're on the same vibe then. You want to just start off with giving like a quick elevator pitch as to who you are as a person?
Yeah. Wow. Who I am as a person.
And as an artist, I suppose.
Hi, I'm Chelsea. I am an illustrator and an art director. Currently, I work full-time. My day job is at YouTube. I work there via ASG as like a contractor. I've been there for the last 2.5 years. Shout out to my team if anyone's watching. And I work primarily on stuff with like our brand and just making sure that everything looks the same. Sometimes if you see the logo change and it has cool art, that might be me. But otherwise, my sort of private practice and illustration, I do a lot of editorial work. I worked in-house doing editorial for a few years. And mostly I just like to draw a lot of goofy stuff. So.
Well done. It's really exciting also to see how versatile you are between doing like editorial illustration and then also, being able to work directly with a brand like YouTube and being able to kind of manifest their brand identity. So obviously we're going to go into a lot about things that inspire you and your different types of work, but I want to hop into the very first segment that we have, which is let's look at your work.
Let's look at your work.
We're going to start off with a very cute segment, obviously, and then we can go anywhere from there. But this is Scribble, which is your dog, your real life dog, right?
Yeah, she's, I believe, behind me right there.
Ooh,
yes.
wait a second. I'm gonna blow you up. So, ooh, okay.
Yes.
I didn't have a name tag for Scribble, but I should have. And this is just like a little sketchbook page kind of from you that you went and drew different poses.
Yeah. This whole site's just like my sketchbook. I have like a real actual professional site, but like I just wanted to show the like sketchbook section because my actual sketchbook is like really messy. Yeah, but this is my dog. I think that I got a dog for several reasons, and one of them is just to draw her in weird shapes. So
I appreciate also the attention to the nipples as well.
Yeah, she has 9 of them.
But okay, so this is closer to your sketchbook more so than your actual portfolio. I'm going to go ahead. I'm actually going to also pull up your website, which is just chelseadrewthis.com, right? We can just pop that up.
Yeah.
All right, cool. And then we can take a look at these. So taking a very first look at this, it starts off with YouTube Doodles, which I know you talked a little bit about, but do you want to speak to these illustrations?
Yeah. So I guess these are all different sizes on my website. Oops. This website's clearly a little under construction. I'm like just kind of now catching up with all the work I've been doing the last like 2.5 years at YouTube. So apologies for that. But yeah, so this section is YouTube Doodles. Like I said, sometimes on YouTube, if you'll notice, there's like the logo will change occasionally. I think we have one coming up. I'm not exactly sure which one's next, but We change the logo sometimes. There's a little animation. You can click on it and then it'll like blow up one of these, which is like a larger illustration. And so sometimes I will either draw them or this one I art directed. This was for Pride. And it was like a really lovely thing to get to do. We have a whole team and I work with some really amazing art directors and illustrators. And we just get to like hire a bunch of cool artists all the time. This one was for tattoo tours, which is like close to my heart. I have like 7 tattoos currently and trying to collect more. So
the tattoos that you have, are they ones that you have illustrated, or are they ones that you have illustrated by the tattoo artist?
No, the tattoo artist has, so I see them as like collaborations actually, usually tattoos where I'll kind of like bring something to the tattoo artist and then like let them go with what looks best on a body, because like illustration is so different than tattoo art, since I'm not used to drawing things on people.
Right.
So, you know, like I have some that are like, this one is like a how to draw a dog, or like a wolf. It's by an artist, Ed Emberley, and it's from a book from like the 70s. And so I brought that to Ralphie, the tattoo artist I go to a lot, and I'm just like, how do I like make this work on me? And so
it's cool how it goes around your arm. Yeah, it's like a band, but it's like I've never seen like a sequential piece around someone's arm before.
Yeah, I thought that was fun. I was like, cool.
Also, hello to a bunch of people that are hopping into the YouTube chat. Hello to Drake and Laurel and Niv. Good to see you guys. Thank you for tuning in. Yes. And then Afrija and Paloma, welcome back over on Behance's side. Like I was saying right when we started off, if you guys have any questions or comments as we work through stuff, please, by all means, throw it in. This is a two-way conversation, so it's fun when we hear from you as well. We're just going over Chelsea's breadth of work right now, starting off with her YouTube doodles, but she has quite the history of a bunch of different stuff. Moving on, we also have these animation making an appearance. This is also for a YouTube doodle.
Yeah, so this is, I mean, here you can see kind of where it changes back into the YouTube logo. This one, we worked with Pedro Pacini, who's this incredible animator. We are always pairing with either an external animator or an internal one. We have some really amazing animators on our team. And so this one I drew, and then Pedro animated this, like, I kind of like did some of the storyboard, and then he punched it up and made it really good, because I don't think in motion like an animator might supernaturally. So it's a really awesome way to kind of collaborate, and like a totally new thing that I'd never really done before in an editorial. So
and does that kind of play to a new sequential part of your brain, as well as like taking, and like now you might consider motion a little bit more closer to like the different sequential stuff that you would create?
100%. Yeah, I used to do like animated GIFs and stuff, kind of when that like blew up in like 2016, like every outlet wanted animated GIFs. And, you know, I was kind of like a self-taught animator. I went to art school, but I didn't ever take animation classes there. And so, you know, when I came into YouTube, I was kind of like, I think I'm kind of an animator. I would say I'm maybe an animator. And then like the professional animators on my team were like, you're not, but that's no. And they were so right. And now I have like this absolutely like amazing, incredible respect for just like the deep level of work and like knowledge that has to go into all kinds of animation. But yeah, now when I do these, I mean, I'm still doing these storyboards for any YouTube doodles I'm working on. And now I'm getting a lot better at kind of like, oh yeah, like this is how a transition is going to have to be, or like I need to set this up so that it flows, or like we should really vary the camera angles, things that like really help, I think, just my work in general, but are like so specific to animation. It's really cool.
Do you feel like there's anything that you can specifically point to that was the biggest learning point for you for that?
Let me think. I'm not sure if I could like point directly to like where it was in the like sort of YouTube doodle process. I might call it Doodles. It's like we shorten it. It's like a goof sometimes.
Is that what's actually called? Do they call it Doodles?
Externally, no. It is YouTube Doodles. But
no, but that's adorable. That's funny.
Yeah, so I think that, and no point in the process can I like point to one, but I think it's like just sort of a gradual like you see my first one, like I don't have the animations on my website necessarily for it, but like the first one was Earth Day, and like that's at the very top in the top left corner, that pink one. And then like it's kind of flat, like the sort of then the animation for it was like pretty basic. It was just sort of like scenes with like little things going on in them. And I've kind of transitioned away from this a little bit from doing just these like little vignettes that then change. I say this as I'm doing one that's just like that right now, but to more like a like full story that kind of starts and ends and has like sort of the motion worked in not just as like an extra, but as something that actually helps tell the story. So
that's really cool. I mean, that's like, it's taking the new level of illustration in today's like sphere of like the idea that no, we still have room for static illustrations, but more so life is being brought into them, whether that's through a TikTok like weird animation or through some sort of like animated GIF, to your point. Although I will say, I read that apparently using GIFs like in conversations is a sign of a millennial, and like Gen Z says it's
Ryan, that's so cringe. You can't do it.
So sad because I love my GIFs. I love motion. I can't help it. Okay, like I want everything to move all the time.
I understand.
I did want to also comment on this one. I love the use of negative space for it. I actually didn't catch it at first when I first looked at it, but then kind of looking back, I was too like enamored with all the different types of cats around the border. But then it's nice to actually go back and then be able to see the negative space that you have here. I wanted to ask you, of these kitties, which one's your favorite?
Okay, so I think that I am contractually obligated to say that the one with the angry one with the flower, who's like kind of near the tail. So that one's actually my friend's cat, Kupo. And
this one right here?
No, towards the tail.
So towards the tail. Oh, okay. This one right here is angry. Yes, I see the angriness of it.
Yes, Kupo, one of the first times I ever met her, climbed my leg like I was a tree, and not in a good way. And I love her dearly. She is still my niece, and she has to wear a little flower sometimes on her head to stop from like scratching. And so shout out to Kupo, forever my muse. Beautiful
my
creature.
favorite, I think, is probably Taco Cat over here. Or a fluffy little cat over here, just because it's just a ball of fluff that would shed everywhere, but I'm here for it. Also,
thank you. I also really like
this one.
Yeah, Hungry Cat. I like Business Cat quite a bit.
Business Cat with the tie.
Yeah, that's me actually. That's me in some of my meetings. I think I become Business Cat.
And that's when you're approaching the YouTube Doodles, you have to put on your business cat attire. We have a few more people rolling in, by the way. Hello to Shane Burke, who's saying Chelsea in the chat. And then welcome back to Anthony, Kendall, Clever. Good to have you here. Bruce is excited that there's another New Yorker in the room, which is nice. You're based out of Brooklyn, right?
I am. Yep, I am in sunny, kind of Bushwick.
Overcasty. Yeah. I was just up in Bushwick yesterday, last night. But that's besides the point. Moving back onto your work, I wanted to talk about this one because I loved the colors that were going on here. I'm a big fan of the black light, dark kind of vibe that some artists are picking up. What is this one about?
Yeah, so this one is by the lovely artist Parallel Teeth, otherwise known as Robert Wallace. And this is one that I got to art direct also. And so this is for speed runs. So for anyone who's like not familiar, I mean, this name's kind of self-explanatory, and I feel like this does a good job explaining it. But so a speed run is when there's like a whole community on YouTube, because basically the YouTube Doodles are sort of this like love letter to these different sort of micro communities that we have on YouTube, where obviously YouTube is where like everything comes together, but it's really a community of communities. So we're sort of taking the speedrunners who are actively trying to one-up each other for the fastest time at like every single game ever. And they talk through it. There's like different like channels for this, like different ways. There's different styles of speedrunning with different rules. This is what it looks like when you like click on the logo and it pops up. That Explore Now button would go to a playlist then that shows you all of these different speedrun videos that are regional, depending on where you live. And yeah, so this one was really amazing to work on for a few reasons. I mean, one, Robert also animated it, and just did an absolutely stunning job. Like, he is incredible. There's a time difference. He's in New Zealand, and he absolutely crushed it. And we got to
You
add in
sped
for
run the
fun.
design process.
Yeah, basically, yeah. These don't get, I mean, these get like some amount of time. To me as an editorial artist, it seems like an eternity, but like really for the amount of stuff you have to do and for like all the approvals, it's like not that long. So, you know, it was really awesome also to kind of be able to sneak in these like little Easter eggs that like the community would notice and appreciate. My partner is a speedrunner. Well, not really, but he likes speedruns. He's like familiar with them. So I had kind of access to someone in my house where he told me that like, oh yeah, 454, and more specifically 454 798 here is the world record time for running I think Super Mario Brothers. And so on the other screenshot of this, it actually says 454 881, which was the previous world record. And 2 weeks before this ran, someone broke it. And so because we do these like a quarter in advance, obviously we were like, oh no. And I had to like really quickly like switch it up, and I made the sort of number change. And the person who broke the record saw it, and he like tweeted about it and was like, oh my God, like I can't believe YouTube like noticed me. Like this is amazing. And so the community really got like a kick out of that, it seems. And that's like the stuff I live for. I love that.
No, it's great because as an editorial artist, I'm sure you have experience with your artwork at scale, with the idea that it's going through publication and it's going through a lot of hands. But YouTube in particular, I feel like is a different beast on its own, where maybe it's a different demographic of people who are experiencing your illustrations and your art directions.
It's like every demographic of people, and it's so global, and it's so like, I mean, it's like, I don't know if it's the most visited website in the world, but it might be. And I mean, it's
definitely
like
up there.
It's like the most eyes I could ever think of on this piece. So it's crazy. You like forget sometimes until you get some like crazy tweet replies or something, and then you're like, oh yeah, everyone can see me.
And so how has your relationship been with, I know you were talking about making that transition from a editorial illustrator to kind of art directing, and in this facet, how has that transition been? Do you, because you said you guys do it a quarter in advance, right? Whereas like with editorial, it's probably like the story's happening, like we need it in the next like week or so. How has it been kind of switching that mindset?
It's been really interesting. I mean, I think that there's like a couple different parts to it, right? Like one of them is that I worked in editorial, and the other one is that I was primarily an illustrator. And then like now I have like an art direction facet to my job. So in sort of terms of going from an in-house editorial person, I worked at Gizmodo, which had like Kotaku and like Jezebel and like all these other life hacker brands under it, like 11 websites. I worked there for 3 years, and we had a team of illustrators. I wasn't art directing. I just had my boss, and then like every day it'd just be like, hey, Kotaku needs an illustration about Sailor Moon. Can like Chelsea, can you do it? It's due tomorrow at like 2 p.m. And then I'd be like, yes. And I was really good at that. I really like sort of the fast paced, like sort of pinch hit. Like it's not about necessarily perfect execution, but it's about executing the idea as well as you can, as quickly as you can, as effectively as you can. So it's kind of like telling a joke, and I really like comedy, and it's kind of like getting to the, like, how do you get a person to see it and then like get the punchline as fast as possible, or the idea. And so, you know, sometimes I look back at pieces from Giz and I'm like, oh man, I certainly did that in like, 3 hours or something. But they're really smart. That's just like, sometimes my execution is like, oh, that's kind of funny. But then when I moved over to working in-house at a place as big as YouTube, and a place where, everything has so many levels of approvals and stakeholders and people's eyes on it, and everyone has different opinions. And I never knew that so many people could feel so many ways about colors. I'm sure that my team is laughing at me right now because like, it's so slow. And I know this is a sentiment that other editorial illustrators like Neve, who's in the chat, have expressed to me, where it's like, we go from editorial where it's just like bam, bam, bam to, I'm spending 3 weeks drawing this one drawing, and then like someone comes and they're like, you need to like change this one angle. Like everything that you do is so zoomed in, and it needs to be, because it's being seen by billions of people and representing a huge important brand. So it's really, it's done a lot for me, I think, in terms of craft and like paying attention to really the nitty gritty. I have a tendency to just kind of want to like speed through and be like, it's fine. But I've really
Do you feel like you draw slower now?
Yeah, I do.
You do.
I think I draw a lot slower, but I think that it's better, and I think that I'm being forced to actually contend with some of the things in my art that I like kind of wanted to ignore before. The other day I had to spend I had spent like an hour relearning how to draw something at an angle in 2-point perspective.
Okay, yeah.
Not just in 2-point, but like within 2-point, it's also at an angle.
Yeah,
And
no,
it was
that's
like,
my nightmare. No, thank you.
yeah, no, it was fun, but I was like, oh my God, I have to like do this.
Over on YouTube, we have Laurel saying YouTube, the new search engine, which I know, I'm making myself sound so old when I'm just like talking like Gen Z. I know Gen Z definitely goes towards YouTube, actually to search for things before they go to Google, which, it's funny because, you know, obviously Google owns YouTube. And then Monique is also giving you hearts, and Mary Lee is giving you hearts as well. Anthony over on Behance is saying, I completely understand the idea from editorial to drawing one character for a month, which that tracks. And Kendall saying, I went from social media speed to corporate. I felt the same pain. It would be a whole week for one approval versus decisions in 5 seconds or less. Which I think that, yeah, there's something to be said about both of the process. There's a beauty to the speed. There's also a beauty to your point when there are billions of people looking at the same illustration and it's representing a community. The one thing that I want to touch on that you mentioned in the speedrunning piece was that there was some research that had to go behind it in order to build out to properly represent the community. Obviously, you also did things for Pride. How has that experience been with the research? Does that take a lot of time before you start drawing, or do you draw and then kind of compare it to your research in like the same time?
Yeah, I have always been, I think that working in editorial, because we're always given these like essays usually, or at least like it was always like full essays basically of information. I got really accustomed to kind of researching topics and doing the same level of deep dive, at least to my own, not same level, but like as much of a deep dive as I could into the topic, because I know that it would do the writers justice, and I have so much respect for the writers. And in that same way, I have so much respect for these sub communities. I'm a huge nerd, and I'm a part of a lot of these sub communities. And so I know how important it is to have things represented correctly. And I've messed up before, especially on Kotaku, which is a games and anime website.
And they are cutthroat, baby. I read them and they are cutthroat.
Yes, they are, the commenters. So I don't know if they still have comments on the website, but these people, it's like if I remember I drew a Dragon Ball Fighter Z illustration. I drew the character, like I took some artistic liberty with it and did them doing a move in like a different way than it actually appeared in the game. And I like ruined several people's month, apparently. Like I was just like, I was not making people happy. And so it kind of primed me to really go into something like this and be like, okay, yeah, like this one that we have up is for VTubers. And I was pretty familiar with VTubers. I have a couple friends who are VTubers, which is virtual tuber. They are like, game streamers or bloggers who are, real people behind the camera, but who have these sort of 2D or 3D anime avatars that like represent them. And so they kind of act out these characters on stream and people, chat with them and whatever. And so, I had to go to a lot of my VTuber friends. I put them all in a little group chat on the back end. And I was like, hey guys, could you like, tell me if this like feels authentic to you? Can you tell me if like this character that I designed, which was like, the most fun thing I ever got to do. It was like so self-indulgent to like design this anime character that like felt like YouTube, but also felt authentic to VTubers. Like how does this feel? And like I got feedback. Like they'd be like, oh, like I feel like this thing, if you added this into the animation, would feel really like, authentic. Natalie, our incredible in-house illustrator or in-house animator, actually like rigged the animation the same way that they would rig a VTuber. So it like feels a little choppy and weird, like the same way that VTubers do feel, because it's like these like weird 2D puppet thing.
Yeah, and it's referencing off of a lot of like real-time data, right? Of like their face, but you don't see their face because it's just mapped, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So so I think that the research is definitely one of my favorite parts of it, especially also for communities that I don't know anything about. The basketball one that I had on here, like I am not a jock. We are an art team, and so there I don't think are any jocks on our art team, unfortunately. So sometimes when we have to do these, we try to hire as much as we can out people who like are part of these communities and like understand them, but sometimes we like have to do them in-house, and I have to learn a lot about basketball for a couple weeks, and still make it feel authentic. And so for something like this, I'm not only looking up, marketing does an awesome job of giving us really popular creators and sort of like ideas of what those communities like we get briefs from them, and they do an awesome job walking us through, and they always check us. But I'm also on the ground. I'm on people's socials. I'm looking at creator socials, looking at the brands that they interact with, the art that they interact with. For a lot of this stuff, I'm looking at like video game art, or like I don't know, like a lot of sports fans are also into anime, and so I'm like, okay, like maybe I can like make a crossover there. Like that's a style I'm more comfortable with. So like, how do I kind of make this feel authentic to them and not like I'm like pandering, but also like something that's my strength. So yeah, it was really fun. Now I know like a little bit about 1v1 basketball. So I love just acquiring random knowledge like that.
Yeah, it's funny, in between all of it, like between like speed running and basketball, like you're gonna have a very weird gallery of knowledge that one day down the road someone will bring up. You're like, wait, why do you know so much about this?
That's kind of my life all the time now, especially working at like 11 Gizmodo websites. If you like, the bottom of my website has a lot of my editorial on it. And I mean, the topics range from everything from, like I said, like a weird American version of Sailor Moon to like,
there she is. There she is. She's the Statue of Liberty.
Yes, this was actually a piece written by now one of my best friends, Cecilia, who owns Kupo the cat. This was like the beginning of our friendship, because like I put my whole heart and soul into this, and she just like really appreciated it because she put her whole heart and soul into the reporting, and it was just like such a beautiful collab. But yeah, it's like it ranges from like this to like cars and like sports, and so I just had to like learn things. I know a lot about like certain tires now, things like that. Yeah, it really just takes you down a bunch of fun rabbit holes, I think, and it really fits me. I'm a person who doesn't view myself as a specialist in any real way. I have a lot of different kind of styles. I'm kind of a chameleon. That's really helpful in-house. So I think that really kind of fits me, to just like have general knowledge of like almost everything with a few niches that I really love.
Yeah, it's interesting to see the style shift between stories here, where like maybe you approach the format of an eye indifferent, and between each piece.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of these are all horizontal landscapes, but how has it been also kind of taking to an idea with like YouTube Doodles that change in dimensions? Has that been strange, switching from strictly editorial to something that has to be a little bit more liquid to like mobile devices?
Yeah. I think that it's a thing that we always kind of considered when we were doing editorial, where like, I mean, most people just use the internet on their phone now in general. So I think a lot of our users and also I used to work at NPR, like there too, like a lot of these things like are mobile. So I'm trying my best to like, in the past, I tried my best to kind of make big shapes and big silhouettes that could be seen small. But, I think in editorial, there's like a little bit more of a, well, people really like, it's about the art a little bit too. And so it's like, oh, like, people will zoom in if they want to see it. But now it's like, no, you can't zoom in on the YouTube Doodles.
Right.
So I really, as a person who kind of loves small details and who loves like just sort of this like specific way of drawing, I've really had to kind of get more silhouette based, more character based, and like sort of find ways to tell the story I want to tell in a much simpler way, especially in the animations, which are, I have like a little piece of paper taped to my like Cintiq at home that has the exact physical size of how they appear on my phone screen, because it's hard for me to like imagine
smart.
Even when I'm working on them, they're like this big, in front of me. And they're literally like this big, like they're so small. And so I really, really have to like recalibrate my brain and be like, okay, like it's about simplicity. It's about no details. It is about telling the story.
Well, that's like looking at any of like emotes with Twitch, and I see people that are able to bust those out, and then I have always like worked on them, and then the second you scale them down, you lose everything. I'm like, how do people make these so legible at such a small scale? It's really impressive.
Yeah, it's
also, I was hoping you could explain this.
Oh, thank you so much for giving this the platform it deserves. This was, I think, my last or one of my last drawings at Gizmodo. So it is about, and this is, I mean, this was like the magnum opus of just sort of like what I would hope someone would hire me for in editorial. Like this is my ideal job, which is this was a piece I think for bug about from Jezebel, I think, which was about an internet subculture in 2008-ish or 12, I'm not sure which one, where I think it was like Rama Bama Lama or something, and like it would Rama Bama Rama, and it was Rahm Emanuel and Obama fan fiction, and it was like a thriving community on LiveJournal, and so I had to make some sort of art that like got at that, and also like the sort of political implications of this, and like how strange that is. And so, you know, as I'm reading this, I'm thinking, all right, like, you know, what do I think of when I think of like fanfic? And it's you know, very popular in like manga sub communities and anime. And so I'm like, all right, we're doing like a flowery, like you know, Bishonen sort of manga panel here, and I got to pull out like manga brushes and like do all this like fun texture stuff. So it was really fun to draw anime Obama.
So strange.
Yeah.
And I think is I was able to recognize him just immediately as I was scrolling down, and I was like, why is that Obama? And like it just like the more I look into it, the more it's fascinating. And yeah, making that tongue-in-cheek commentary while still, like, if you look in the background, to your point, you still have to acknowledge that there is political implications to the idea of putting these two people in the same fanfic.
Yeah.
By the way, I forgot to call it out, but when you said that Dragon Ball Z ruined some people's week or month, Niv wants you to know that it ruined their year. So your illustrations have implications. Then you have, you know, your anime Obama, so who knows what goes from there.
That's my goal is to ruin every one of Need's months, just like in succession. So that's
it's fun to also see that you have played around also with some pixel art. I saw around here, it was a nose picking situation, which was,
this is another example of like a thing that I would like, the ideal thing to hire me for editorial in my brain. Like the things I love the most are like goofy things like those, like goofy video game stuff. I loved WarioWare as a kid. This is about WarioWare, which is a game for GameCube. And thank you. And I just got to, like, God bless Jim Cook, shout out, my old boss, who just let me do stuff like this. I had to pixel that nose myself because I couldn't find a high enough res version of the actual game.
You have a picture of you just like straight up.
Yeah. So it's great. I love it.
Niv is saying anime Obama makes their week though, so
okay,
you have that balance. Paloma says was not on my bingo card today to see anime Obama, which you know, fix your bingo card. I don't know what to tell you.
Yeah, exactly.
I love this water cooler guy. I love the shininess of it all. I think this once again shows your breadth of flexibility. I love the difference between the style of the water cooler and the man himself. What was this one about?
So this was the cover of the New York Times business section.
So cool. Nice flex. I love it.
Thank you. I'm only flexing because our mutual friend Zach Bickle was my art director for it too.
Oh, no way.
Great. Yeah. And so he likes to hire me for just like goofy stuff sometimes. And yeah, this one was about returning to the office and how companies were kind of doing these like mandatory return to offices, or like trying to like give out perks so that people would want to, but the perks were all like really lame. And just kind of like, yeah, there's a carnival at your office. And everyone's like, I want to work from my house where my children are. I do not want a carnival at my job. So I got to make Water Cooler Man, who I decided was the mascot of Fun
Love the
RTO.
tie.
Thank you. Yeah.
On Little Dog.
That is again me when I am art directing. But yeah, I got to make Water Cooler Man, who became apparently a favorite on their art team. People really love Water Cooler Man. So yeah,
he has real Burger King vibes. Like, he's supposed to be comforting, but he's also terrifying. Yeah.
I want him to be like deeply unsettling, but like in like a way that really only I feel like corporations can get wrong. Like it is. I think that working now for a big company sometimes, and also just seeing other people's big company jobs, you're like, oh wow, that's a fascinating little corporate guy that doesn't feel real or human.
Yeah, it almost I don't know if you watched any of Severance, but it also kind of has Severance vibes to it.
Thank you.
Which you should check out if you had not. I love the colors in this guy over here. The neon, once again, I know I'm always kind of drawn towards the dark colors, but can you talk about this one?
Yeah. So it's funny that you call it the colors on this. I'm really proud of the colors on this because as a general rule, you might not be able to tell by my website because I think that I've picked out most like bright things to put on there. But typically I really like to work with like pretty muted colors and like low saturation stuff. And my boss, Jim, again, who I think is just one of the most like talented, smart artists ever, like love like kind of neon colors and bright stuff. It looks better on the web. I totally got why. So I really had to kind of like flex a bit and like work with more neons. He'd be like, please stop making everything this muted salmon color. It needs to stop. So for this one, this was about one of the writers, her dog named Frankie has anxiety. And so she was trying everything. And she brought him to, I know, I'm like, I am Frankie. We are all Frankie. So he got brought to an energy healer, and otherwise known as Reiki. And so a Reiki healer was performing Reiki on Frankie the dog. And it was just kind of this like long Jezebel piece about like sort of the experience of Frankie going to Reiki. And I really love the idea of just like crystals and like this sort of like hand thing and like this like really weird, like ethereal dimension. This is the kind of thing that I think I love the most about doing like editorial stuff in-house. Like you're doing so many of them, you can just kind of like mess around and be like, I think today I'm gonna like look at 5 artists whose work kind of like vibes like this and like try and emulate certain things I really like about it, just to kind of experiment and play around. And I think it turned out really cool. I like the beams of light and like how I handled the intersection and things like that. So yeah, it took me a long time though. There was a lot of perspective happening here.
No, yeah, there's a lot going on. Lots of different lines all going around, and then even back into the background, kind of that ephemeral space. But I love what you said about kind of referencing others for getting inspiration. And that brings us to a great next part, which is art talk. So I asked you kind of someone who is inspiring to you and someone's work that you kind of go towards. And you said Molly Bees was one of them, right?
Yeah, Molly Mendoza.
Molly Mendoza. Okay, but the work is bees, so for whatever reason.
Oh, okay, yeah. So the bees.
Right.
Yeah. So the bees. A little bit of explanation on that before I talk about Molly, who's incredible. So the bees are. We play this game online. Most people are familiar with like World of Warcraft when I talk about a massive multiplayer online game. But we play Final Fantasy 14, which is similar to that, but it's all Final Fantasy, so it's kind of like anime and cool. It feels very friendly to like women and queer people. And so we have a group of like 11 or 12 of us that are called the Bees. Like you have like a little house in the game and like we're all a group and we do like raids and stuff. And it's really nerdy. It's really fun, but it's also kind of opened up this really wonderful space for us to make fan art of just like our characters. It's very low stakes. We're all professional artists pretty much. Or those of us that are professional artists kind of found this like really safe space to just like draw nerd stuff, really self-indulgent, and send it to each other and just hype each other up. And Molly is just like unbelievably incredible at this. So this is our entire what's called a free company. It's like a guild. And they just drew every one of us. I am the little witch hat one who's on top of the big Elvis. The big Elvis is my fiance. We're married in the game. And then my character sitting on top is Lessons Mott Mott. So, and I'm a little caster, so I have my little book. It's just very cute. Everyone's got their own little personality. I love it.
Now, obviously, it's great to be able to see yourself and your community represented in a piece, especially made by somebody else. But what is the thing that you really take out of this piece that you would want to implement into your own work?
Yeah, I mean, every single piece that Molly does, I think, is just like so beautiful and has so much emotion in so few brushstrokes. Like their economy of line and sort of the way that they stylize is so unlike anyone else I've seen or any other references that I kind of look at myself. And just watching the like speed with which they're like, oh, like a doodle for today. It's like so free and but still so like descriptive. really like the way that you can feel the characters' bodies and like weights shifting and like where they're putting weight. The one line can mean an entire piece of armor, and like you get it. And as someone who like overworks all of their pieces, Molly's really, I think, inspired me to kind of slow down and be a little, or even speed up and be a little bit more messy with my work and kind of try to get lines right the first time and not like overwork a piece until it feels void of all sort of feeling. They're I mean, even outside of the work that they do, just like with our Final Fantasy group, their like professional work and paintings are like I've always been a fan, like forever. I like kind of was like super fangirling when they also like play this game with us. And now that they're like one of my really close friends, I still fangirl all the time because they're just like absolutely amazing.
Yeah, well, let's check out another piece from her or them. They have created this one that's like a little bit more of a change because this one feels obviously different with a different change of color. Why'd you send this one over?
Yeah, I really love this one because this is just 3 of our characters. The one who's sitting in the middle is Molly's character, Egg. The one next to Egg with the cat ears is our friend Cecilia's character. And then I'm sitting down there eating makeup because my character is really weird. And I think that this does like a really beautiful job explaining just like the power of Molly's lines and how, like this is such a beautiful drawing and it's so simple and it's so goofy, but like even the composition here is so considered. And like, they send these things, they're like, haha, like here's a goof, like we were making this joke in the chat, and then like an hour later or something, this like gorgeous piece of art just like shows up, and it's like so wild to just like see someone like just kind of like pump out stuff like this as like a nothing, like, yeah, here's just a sketch. And again, it's just so inspiring. It just makes me want to draw every time I see their work.
Yeah, it's always cool to see someone who's able to just manifest like a joke or something that someone's talking about and then like turn it into a full-on composition.
Yeah, and I think that they have such a strong personal style too. Like if you like look at their other professional work, it looks like this. Like all of this is also drawing of Egg. I don't know if they're gonna hate me for like only showing their like their Final Fantasy drawings. They are also like a extremely talented book and like editorial artists. They do murals. They're amazing. But
I feel like the talent resonates through any of these pieces, and also it's the things that they are obviously passionate about and brings them joy. So I'd be surprised. These are really nice pieces. I like in this one particular the legs, the armor that's going on down here, because it has
that's what I'm saying. Yeah, like that one line, like if you just see the ankle that's closest to us at the bottom of the composition there's that one squiggle at the back of the heel, like that. Like, yeah, like that line right there is like so fluid and like has such sort of like, I don't know. I used to hear professors talk about it in school a lot where they just be like, they like obsess over this one moment or this one line in a piece. Yeah. And I'd always kind of be like, okay. And I don't know, I guess maybe it's my art director brain now, or maybe I'm just older and lamer, but like, or more developed as a person. But Molly's art like really made me be like, oh my God, that moment, that one squiggle is so smart and like, considered. And like, I know that it's not just like that they work for this too. And that they like, they think about it all and that this is something they've worked towards and that they do intentionally. But it is like so effortless looking and beautiful.
It's having that intent. Bruce is talking about having a nice flow to it. And Affect is also just appreciating it. Just continuing on this, I know we were talking a little about the bees, and this looks like a full-on cover for a comic.
Yes,
this is pretty insane.
Yeah, so this is so Molly and our friend Ricardo Lopez Ortiz, who is just an absolute beast at ink and all things comic. He does a lot of like real comic works for the big comics out there. And again, this is one of those things where I'm like just so lucky to have these friends who just like play a stupid video game with me all the time, who are also just like the best artists I've ever met. And so here he made this like crazy group drawing, and of behind us is Bahamut, this like big boss that we had been fighting for a really long time, where it's like every week we'd like log in and we'd like try to do this like intricate dance on the internet to like beat it. But I think that just like looking at this is also like I mean, just the energy in his lines. Like I believe that he does all of his lines traditionally. So this is like an ink drawing that he just like has somewhere. You know, and sort of the energy that he brings to each of these characters, the way that he stylizes them is so different, but it's so fitting for each one of them. And then Molly colored it, which is amazing. Also, which is like Ricardo had uploaded the ink drawing, and then all of a sudden, like Ricardo, like you know, Molly colored it, and I don't know. It's so amazing. Like it's just for us. Like we're just like goofing. So I don't know. This is framed in my basement as well as Molly's piece. So I get to look at them all the time and just marvel at how amazing my friends are. It's really great.
No, it's miraculous to also just have that organic collaboration and the idea of, you know, it feels like a singular piece made by one person, but obviously kind of similar to when you're working on YouTube Doodles or something, that a bunch of people have hands in it, and then it can still feel cohesive at the end.
Yeah, it feels so. We were really surprised, I think, by just how beautiful and cohesive that was. So I don't know. Those two need to like do something else together, I think, professionally. So they're awesome. So it's great.
Now this one feels very close to your color scheme. It feels like something that is more in your field house. Is that kind of why you picked this one out?
Yeah, I mean, I think that it's just like another example of like Molly's sort of style, and like it's a good egg drawing. So, you know, I threw it in there. I just wanted to throw in a bunch of them just to, you know, so you could pick out whatever you wanted. But yeah, I think that their style of coloring and their color choices are always, I mean, we just saw something that they colored, but, you know, they're always really interesting to me. They use gradient maps in Photoshop, which is something that I am still actively trying to get to use and with no success. So I'll have to maybe ask them to help me sometime. But the way that they use them is so smart. And it's so them in it. And I know that then whatever other process they do, they end up with these incredible color schemes that come out of their brain somehow. And their paintings look like this too, like when they're doing a physical paint. So I don't know, something in Molly's brain makes these amazing color schemes. And I'm just so impressed.
Well, cool. Well, thank you for sharing Molly with us. Yeah. It's always exciting to see that interaction with other artists and then kind of how you can make the connections with others. Also love hearing just the process and kind of what you're gearing towards, which is a great segment for our next part. What's in your sketchbook?
Ooh, what's in your sketchbook?
So let's go ahead and hop back on over to the real important stuff, which is whatever this is. And you mostly sketch digitally, or you mostly sketch physically and then kind of bring it into a digital setting?
So, I mean, just by nature of being on the computer all day, because my job is on the computer and working on my like 24-inch Cintiq, I am always drawing on the computer. So, I mean, if you go through like my files, I'm sure that like, you know, in years, if someone needs to like pick through something that I did, they're going to find some like weird random drawing like this in one of the layers. This was something I did traditionally though, in my sketchbook, and I like cut them all out and put them on here because it looks nice. Yeah, I don't know what happened here. I think this was some sort of like deep pandemic psychosis that I went through. But like mostly in my sketchbooks, I'm not like great at drawing traditionally sometimes, or like I'm trying to get better at it now. So I just end up kind of drawing like goofy guys. Like these feet, man.
Like their feet in the broken socks. But also I'm starting to kind of feel like letter forms are almost here. Now, when you're creating something like this, is this kind of like a warm up towards other work, or is this kind of just when you're in your own zone, to kind of just doodling on the side?
Yeah, it's kind of just like it's funny because I'm a professional artist. My job is art. I do art all day, right? But my hobby is also art, and it's like weird to kind of monetize your hobby, but somehow in my brain I've compartmentalized it enough where there's still like kind of like my fun stuff and then like my work stuff. And so I really do sometimes decompress from work with more art, even if it's just I'm drawing for 12 hours straight or something. This kind of thing is just like head empty, lots of Pikachu. Like that's, you know, head empty foot guy. And just sort of like these goofy drawings that have no pressure. I don't monetize them unless someone like really wanted to hire me for that. And like I can just kind of be free to let my brain go, you know, sit on the floor with a beer and just like kind of scrawl something. So again, this is like pandemic stuff. I was really bored in the pandemic all the time, as most of us were, sitting in my room, and I would go on Instagram semi-frequently, and I was also very lonely, and I would just ask people to, I'd be like, hey, I'm here for an hour and ask me to draw something random. And then people would just come in my asks and be like, I don't know, like draw a whole page of Pikachu. And I'd be like, okay. So I'd draw my Pikachus and things like that. So yeah, it's really relaxing for me, oddly enough, to do some of this sketchbook stuff.
Now, is this a Moleskine?
It is.
Okay.
Right
Is
here.
that what
I have
you
this.
feel like you gravitate towards? Do you gravitate towards a certain brand, or is it kind of just whatever has paper and is within reach?
I think that over the years, I've had definitely different types of sketchbooks. I used to have those like really big, I think Canson ones that were like Strathmore or something that were like, this big, and they're like, they have like the brown cover and they're like just sketchbook paper. They're like really thick. But unfortunately, those like the binder rings on them are kind of open and all my pages would just fall out eventually. So I had those all throughout high school and like most of college because they're also big. Like Moleskines are pretty small. So, I needed them, but like, what I liked about Moleskines is, well, I think most people in their sketchbooks really need to like loosen up and just sort of like, do whatever they want. I think I needed to like tighten up in my sketchbooks, and sort of those like huge pages would just be like, I'd draw like one horrible like drawing of a face and be like, nah, and then just like go to the next page. I don't know. I just waste a lot of it. So I feel like having a Moleskine, I have like 4 of these that are like filled with just like stuff.
So you're good at finishing them for the most part. You don't abandon
Yeah, not
them.
intentionally. I mean, some of the pages are just like to-do lists, but like, I do try and use up all the pages. They're also kind of expensive. So I do like want to fill them up. So it kind of, and it's also nice to have sort of a precious object to like fill and sort of like work with instead of just like this like ratty sketchbook. So for me, I really like them. The quality of the paper is also pretty nice. So like I can use ink in them if I want and things like that.
And then for the very first page, how do you normally approach that? Do you keep it blank? Do you draw on it first? Or is there something that you regularly put there?
Yeah, I was going to see if there's anything interesting on it. It's not. I think that I used to get really nervous about it, I think, and I have tried over the last few years, or just like lost sort of initiative with making a million sketchbooks, that it's just random stuff on there now.
It can be whatever.
Right now it's like some doodles from, I went to Hawaii with my fiance, and I like drew a bunch of like Nidoking because it was like, maybe I'll get a Nidoking tattoo because like some tattoo artist did Pokemon tattoos there.
So obviously Pokemon is a big part of kind of inspiration there, and also something that kind of regularly pops up in your work. But I can kind of also almost feel something here where we have something that's not entirely Pokemon, but you can still see reference to it almost.
Yeah, I mean, that's like where I started out. Like a lot of people, I mean, I was a kid in the 90s and, collected a bunch of Pokemon cards. I have like a ton of them next to me. I don't play. I honestly don't know anything about more recent Pokemon like expansions. I played Arceus. It was really fun if anyone played that during the pandemic. But yeah, I think that growing up, I used to have all these like, I was like obsessed with it. And I was an only child. And so like Pokemon was kind of my like sibling where I would just like play, Game Boy all day. And I had all the game guides, and I would like go into the game guides and I would like try and copy the characters. And I loved the art that the old Pokemon artist did. And it's always these like very simple blocky shapes, like the hair for Pokemon trainers and stuff is always like these like really crazy shapes that are like really beautiful and simple. And I think that's something that like I really wanted to sort of get into my work, is like something that's sort of simple and beautiful. So yeah, I think that Pokemon comes back a lot. And also you just can't forget your roots. I think it just is going to always look a little bit like Pokemon unless I'm trying really hard not to look like Pokemon.
Of course. And then kind of to that point, you have some really strong shapes here with this tiger. When you're working on something like this, do you know going into it that there's going to be a heavy black shape in the middle of it? Or is it something you kind of sketch out and then you're like, oh, kind of work out that this would be a heavier spot?
It feels funny. It feels like, I know that a lot of people, and maybe I'd benefit from this too, like really plan out illustrations in their brain the entire way, sort of like do a bunch of sketches, like really figure out everything about it before starting the final thing. And I feel like in some ways when I'm working, especially on something that's just for myself like this, it's sort of a process. Like working on it is also me actively thinking about it, and like sort of my strongest pieces I find are things that kind of develop as I go and sort of are responsive to like what I'm drawing. Like oh man, like that mistake line actually like looks really great, or like I filled in this dress just as like a placeholder, and actually that looks really nice that's like a black fill there, or like things like that. I think that basically going into this one, all I had was the piece next to it, and then I was like, ooh, I want to make like a companion piece to this, like that one. Yeah, I was like, oh, I want to make a companion piece to this, and then like just like looked up some fancy dress on my like fashion Pinterest board and was like, I want to draw that and like this kind of shoe, and then it just sort of like all developed as I was drawing.
And I like your use of texture here that you have with the noise. Noise is very trendy right now, but it doesn't feel gimmicky. This feels like it's intent. I love how it doesn't even, last where just the shadows are. It's kind of where the orange would be. And then you kind of match that also with the sock, which kind of blends the two together, which is really nice. But cool. Thank you so much for letting us take a look at your sketchbook. I really appreciate it. We do have about 20 or so minutes left, which means we're about an hour into our show. We like to do a little thing called Monkey Paws, which I'm going to walk you through real quick. Also, Bruce is mentioning that the foreshortening was really cool on the piece that we just looked at. Also, Giselle's giving you hearts in the YouTube chat. So thank you guys for here. If you guys have any questions as we're going on for Chelsea, please let me know. And I will be sure to relay them to her. But do you have any issues with your wrists or with carpal tunnel ever? Is that anything you run into?
Yes, unfortunately, as a person who plays too many video games as their hobby on top of drawing, and then drawing also as a hobby on top of drawing, my thumb specifically gets really messed up. I've had to take time off of work before because I just like overused it a little.
That is a nightmare for me.
Yeah.
I've gotten close to the point where I've had to like do weird things with the mouse with like another hand to get a job done, but I fortunately have never ran into having to completely taking out off of work for it. But in part of that is because whenever I start to feel any soreness, I do this exercise that I learned through Anna Davis Court, and I wanted to kind of teach it to you as well. And so it's just 4 parts. They're even kind of illustrated by these cute little monkeys that Anna illustrated. And so what you do is you reach forward like this with your hands out, and you bring in your fingers to look like little monkey paws, and you go ooh, ooh, ah, ah.
Ooh, ah.
Yeah, noise is very important. Very important.
Okay.
And so ooh, ah for the first one. Then the second one, you go down like this. And bring it in again. Ooh, ooh, ah, ah. And then you release. You're going to go ahead and switch over out like this so that you have like, I'm giving them to you at this point. Bring them in. Ooh, ah, ah. You also froze at a really funny part. So then you go like this, and then you're going to go ahead and you're going to bring it back in with ooh, ooh, ah, ah. And so that's just the 4 ones that we have. You can shake it up. We normally do it maybe like once or twice. Well, actually more like 2 or 3 times. And it's just kind of good to get into. I mean, for the most part, it's just a quick little exercise you can do whenever you're kind of feeling, a little bit sore. Even when you're not feeling sore, honestly, it's just kind of a means to an end. We also do. Yeah, did you see where you froze?
No, I didn't.
Oh my gosh, you're gonna have to watch the replay. You're like,
okay, that's actually my default facial expression. So great.
But yeah, so it goes like that. Then you're like this. You go like that, and then the last one is this one. And obviously, if it hurts at all, you want to stop. But it helps, at least me, a lot because I feel them in my wrists a lot, especially when I'm clicking away on the keyframes. Do a little thing. People talk about doing 20-20, which is every 20 minutes, looking 20 feet away. But do you do any exercises or anything to kind of take care of your body?
Yeah, so I definitely heard the like looking away thing. I am like in my Cintiq all day, so yeah. I still have pretty good vision. I don't have to wear glasses yet. So I'm like, I gotta really stay on top of that. But obviously I've been sleeping on the hand exercises, so this is really helpful. Consider like my thumb's already feeling a little tired. So that's probably good. But yeah, I mean, we live really close to a park, and I got the sleeping creature back there who does in fact wake up occasionally, especially for her walks to the dog park. So I walk I live in New York too, so it's like I'm walking all the time, which really helps my brain. Sometimes helps me like think of stuff better than like sitting here and just like staring. So
yeah, that's a great point. Let's actually let's talk about some burnout. Everyone goes through it. It's just a it's a part of the work life of being an artist. What do you do whenever you feel like you're kind of artistically exhausted, or you're maybe hitting a part where you don't feel like you can draw on that day? Are there any tips or tricks that you do to kind of get out of your funk?
Yeah, I think there's a couple things about burnout, and it's something that I extremely experience. I think that it's easy to see someone who works like in-house and like kind of the number of things that they're producing and think that they are always on and always okay. But part of the reason I got really fast at illustration is because I'm not always on and sometimes have to kind of run to catch up to stuff. Because also I think it's important to be really kind to yourself about burnout. You're not going to get anywhere any faster by really trying to work through it, I think. At least I don't. Maybe sometimes, but I think that overall, if I'm feeling burnt out, it's important for me to be like, all right, you know what? Today's not the day. I'm a human. Time to go, sit in my basement with my partner and like watch Love Island, or like time to go walk my dog, like time to do something that is, or even like, time to watch a movie that I think is really inspiring. I got really bad burnout, and then we watched Fooly Cooley, which is this like this anime series. It's like a total classic. It's like so sick. The art's amazing. And I was like, I'm back. I want to draw again. And then kind of ramping back up into drawing again professionally, stuff that you don't want to do. Maybe drawing something really self-indulgent. A lot of those sketches that I showed for my sketchbook are things that are kind of from when I'm feeling burnt out and I'm like, I just need to be moving myself, but I'm not gonna force myself into anything. So like what comes out, what weird little foot guys come out, what giant page of Gengar comes out, stuff like that. So I think sometimes it helps to just be kind to yourself and let yourself have some fun with drawing. Remember why you love it again, and then come back to it when you're ready.
No, those are all great points. I definitely recommend the idea of like watching art that you do like, because then it kind of gives you the idea to be like, oh, that's why I'm into it. Hello to Matt and Megs who are in the chat. They're actually coming up next in just about 30 minutes. So thank you guys for being here. James says he does similar hand stretches. Giselle is mentioning getting hand insurance. And also hello to Sita, who's also over on Behance. But it's been really great hearing you kind of talk through your process. If it's okay, could we actually take a little look to see you do something in real time?
Yeah, absolutely. How do I do that?
Yeah, so there's just a little thing on the bottom of the screen, says present, and you should be able to present to your screen.
Share screen. Okay.
Next up we have Matt and Megs. I don't know if Megs is going to be with us, but Matt and Megs do a wonderful animation live streams on YouTube as well, if you guys want to check those out in advance. And they are really good at doing community canvases and working in Adobe Animate, which I always want to learn, but I am a little behind on my massive list of things that I always want to add to my repertoire. I went to a motion meetup yesterday, and everyone was talking about like 1,000 different programs. I'm like, I just add another one to the list, please.
Let's see.
But yeah, so you do a lot of sketching and drawing in Photoshop, right? And then you also do some on the iPad. Do you use like Kyle Webster's brushes, or have you kind of collected brushes over the years?
I originally started using Kyle Webster's brushes. Let's see. Does that... Oh, shoot. Go to system preferences. Okay. I apparently have to quit Google Chrome and then come back.
Oh, yeah. No worries. We will be here when you come back.
All right.
And see you in a second.
Seconds.
All right. Well, she gets that set up. I do want to actually take the point to also advertise that there is a new creative podcast coming out on July 19th with Teresa Au. And it's called In the Making. You guys can subscribe there at adobe.ly/inthemaking. And it'll be going through a lot of the different process and showing things that are behind the scenes. So would love if you guys check that out. Welcome back to Chelsea. Good to have you here. So we have about 20 minutes left or so, and we appreciate you taking the time to kind of show a little bit of your work. What are we looking at now?
All right, so right now we are looking at, you know what, let me open you guys up and move you. This is very meta right now. Let me move you over here so that I can still see you. So right now we're working on, and this is, I promise, not a plug. I can't show the stuff that I work on in my day job. So outside of work, like I said, I try to keep up like a professional practice. And I do books. So I am doing a book right now, which I'm so lucky to do. It is coming out, I think, in 2025 with Timber Press. It's written by my good friend Ryan Mandelbaum. It'll be called Wild NYC, and it is part of this series of books that are kind of like field guides, but a little bit tongue-in-cheek for different cities. They have like Wild Miami already and like Wild Philadelphia and stuff like that. So I'm working on a page in that book for seagull identification. So I don't have a lot of this stuff like up on the internet yet, but I think it's kind of funny to look at this. And it's also a pretty good example of some of my process here. I'd already sketched it out and approved it with Ryan to make sure it was right. We're doing seagull identification or gull identification at Jacob Rees Beach, which I don't know if there's any other NY people in the chat, but like you should know it. So their idea, Ryan's idea, was to have all the seagulls kind of sitting around and doing seagull stuff. I think that this guy down here is probably my favorite. So all these crazy lines are my perspective grid. I've masked them out so that they're not all over the place and a little bit more contained inside of here. Every artist does their perspective grids differently, I think. This is just how I do mine.
Can you talk a little bit through that? Like, so you have what, blue, green, and peach kind of as your reference. Do you use those like the old like traditional way of like having a point off to the side and then like using it as a cross, or are you using like the shift and holding down with like a rotated canvas?
Yeah, so I've got them off to the side, and basically I make my this is like, I know that there's 1,000 better ways to do this.
There is no shame here. Also, you earlier said this isn't a plug. It's definitely supposed to be a plug. So
okay. This is a plug.
Plug away.
Yeah, so I'm basically what I'm gonna do right now is just kind of, I can't do my like final stuff because I'll just do a bad job, but I can try. So basically, for perspective grids, what I do is it's off to the side. I make the drawing that I'm doing, my sketch, like really teeny in the middle of the page, because otherwise the like file just becomes enormous. And I 7, and I draw out all my perspective lines on top of a really rough sketch. I tend to draw, I mean, you know, I've been doing art a long time. I tend to draw pretty in perspective to begin with. And so let's turn up some smoothing here. I love the smoothing that's new. That's, I mean, relatively new. Something that they added makes my life so much easier. So
takes all my coffee jitters out of my hand.
I know. Yeah. I don't know if y'all have seen my like giant iced coffee that's been melting next to me.
What's your coffee order real quick?
It is, I mean, in the summer, it's just a big iced coffee. It needs to not be a big iced coffee. But yeah, that's the big jitters. I think normally if I'm just having like a casual coffee that I love, it's a London Fog, but that's a tea latte. So,
ooh.
But yeah, so I'm just, you know, using a 3-point perspective here. Then I blow up the canvas with those grids on top of it, and then I can follow them later. So
it's also super interesting to see that you use a canvas that has the margins that you have then used the guides to kind of reiterate those spots. Whenever you're working on illustration, do you always keep the space for the margins over the edge, or is that just for this specific book?
It's mostly for the book or when I'm working with stuff that's going to be printed. I kind of got my start illustrating like professionally as a person who does gig posters. And so from kind of making work that's going to be printed or screen printed or whatever, I just got really in the habit of making sure that I have margins. I know that I'm not really overdrawing the actual art here, but it just seems to help my brain. This is like the actual drawing space I have. So if I have like one of these, it's actually going to go off the page or anything like that. Like I might actually use those later. I just kind of set up this file and keep using the same file to draw a lot of my stuff on. So
Cool. And then for the way you have your folder structure kind of set up, you actually have like a solid on the bottom that's just green. How come you use green for the background?
Oh, this?
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that, well, so for this book, I've tried to make it really easy on myself. I love working in limited color palettes. I use the library's tool for that, like exclusively. And I've kind of been using the same set of like 25 color palettes for most of my career, which actually kind of helps unify a lot of things that are in different styles.
Right.
And it's a bad line. Yeah, and so I think that the green is just the color in this sort of specific yeah, this is what drawing is. This is awesome. I'm just going to redraw the same line like 38 times.
You're being way too hard on yourself. No one was thinking it. It's what we all do. So you're doing great.
Yeah. So that was just the color that I was like, oh, that'll be a really nice background for the sky. And then all the colors or lack thereof in the gulls will stand out really nicely on it. So, I mean, I have all these other good colors here. Like I have a pink, I've got these like creams, it's really bright yellow. So it's a pretty versatile limited palette, which I really appreciate.
And where did you pull those when you were building that color scheme out? Was that just something you built a document in and then just saved the colors?
Yeah. So I don't know. So this is a thing that if anyone's interested in kind of the nitty gritty of how I do this, on my Instagram, I have like one in the like little stories things that are at the top of my like feed or whatever. I saved one that's like color picking because people ask me that a lot, which I appreciate because people like my colors. But like long story short, I find usually photographs or even like paintings or something like that, old master paintings. And I will throw them into Photoshop and then throw on crystallize filter and then like make the like pixels really huge in it. And it'll kind of like distill it into a bunch of like a big color palette almost. I saw this from some other artist a million years ago on Tumblr. And then I kind of just go through and like, I mean, there will be 150, sort of sections there, and you kind of just got to pick out the ones that make a nice color scheme. But then through years of using that color scheme, I've kind of refined it. Like this is now unrecognizable from the initial sort of color palette that it was, I'm sure. But yeah, I then kind of edit them as necessary. Obviously, like I know color theory, like I know how to make my own colors if I need to, so I can always add to these, but it's kind of helpful to have like a limiting base. I really always find kind of parameters super helpful for me. So that process just really works out for me, I think.
Bruce is saying that looks like that particular green is a favorite of yours, looking at the room that you're in, which is so cool, by the way, he says.
Yes. I've got much green. Then the wall sort of in front of me is like the same color as this green couch. I've got some of that green in my shirt. It is. I do like sort of seafoam green quite a bit.
Also, Scribble has been deadly asleep this entire time.
Yeah, the dog is alive.
Out.
She is like 6.5, and she's saving all of her energy to go fight with like 3 puppies at the dog park later, I'm sure. Let me rustle her really quick, just because I feel like I have to.
She's just been out.
I know, but I'm going to. She'll be fine. She'll go right back to sleep. Scribble, come here. Hi, honey. Good morning.
She's like, what is going on? Why am I on TV?
I know. I do this to her in meetings all the time too. Yes, this is our rescue Chihuahua mix, Scribble. She is my muse, and I work so that we can send her to college so that she can give up her life of crime.
Her doggy college and get out of doggy crime.
Exactly. So she's like the best dog on planet Earth. We're just so lucky to have her. We've had her for like 2.5 years. So now she's gonna go right back to sleep in that pile of blankets. But making a bed. And there, yeah. Anyway.
And so back to the seagull post. Are you someone who normally like works on one layer, or are you someone like you'll make the bench one layer and then you'll work on the beach as one layer and the bird as one layer?
It really depends. I am unfortunately a layer monster. My files are impossible for people. I group things like obsessively because like within this group, I don't know what all those lines are. I'm sure they're just like random sketches. I've also learned that through just like a lot of editorial that everyone's going to ask me for a bunch of edits. So it's easiest to keep things as separate as possible. Yeah. Also, when I'm working in perspective like this, I'm going to stop drawing straight lines and start drawing birds. More fun. when I'm working in perspective like this, I tend to do like a couple different layers so that like I can like erase part of it if I'm like overdraw, and then I'll merge them later. Layers really, I really abuse them, but it's helpful.
I don't think it's definitely an abuse thing. I go back and forth sometimes between the idea of like everything being on one layer and forcing me to be more adventurous. And then other times I will have the bench line work and the bench color and then the bench highlights all on like 3 different layers.
Oh, that's definitely what I do. I definitely am like, here's bench highlight 1, here's bench highlight 2, here's bench, like it's terrible. It'll be like 350 layers later. One of my files actually for work just shifted into PSB without me asking it to, which is apparently the like big Photoshop
big
file.
Boys.
It's
that's when
a
they're
large
like, this
lad.
is too big for a PSD.
It's like not a big drawing either. So I'm like, oh, what have I done? But yeah, so I that's like a new achievement unlocked. I think I should get some sort of little trophy for finally shifting Photoshop into PSB.
I feel like a lot of times that happens whenever I am using more artboards. When I load up on my artboards, it normally switches over to a PSB. Which, by the way, someone called out PSD in your username earlier, which is funny. It'd be really funny if, like, later in life, you finally like feel like you've reached the work level where you're like, I am now officially changing my name to PSB because I'm on the front of Time magazine every day.
Yes, definitely. You know what? I'm not going to color on the same layer as these lines in case I decide to change the color of these birds. I put PSD in there in college, I think, because I was like, well, this will be smart. Then people will know that I'm like a professional artist, I guess, because like I use Photoshop. So yes, that's intentional. But now I can't change it. Now Scribble's Instagram is actually scribble.jpg. I do feel like she is a lossy quality dog, unfortunately. So can't save her too many times, but
it's reflective of the personality.
Yeah, exactly. Just like as like a vibe.
So when you're drawing, also, do you feel like you kind of stay at one zoom level the entire time, or do you kind of feel like you kind of jump in and out?
Yeah, I definitely like jump in and out. Like I am all about my hotkeys. I'm like, I watched a video when I was kind of doing some research for drawing the that's too far, for drawing the VTuber Udall, and I was watching some like how to draw anime videos, because while obviously I know how to draw anime, it's been a long time since I kind of brushed up, and there's like such a specific visual language to like legit anime. And one of the things that everyone always does wrong is they zoom in too far, and just like they get too into it, and then like the piece looks like disjointed or whatever. And I thought that was like an amazing point. So now I try to make it a habit to like only zoom in like to like here, because no one's gonna see my work like this, you know. And it makes it a little bit overworked if I do that. So,
and also to your point when you were talking about the times with the posted note, to be able to see in real time like what something looks like off to the side is probably very helpful.
Yes, exactly.
We've got about 5 minutes left or so. Cool. And so I did want to actually see if we could touch base on one part. If you have any tips or tricks that you use in your workflow that are essential to creating things that you create, in a segment we call I Didn't Know That Was There.
What? I didn't know that was there.
So is there anything that you kind of use regularly that you didn't know was there for a long time, and then you kind of eventually figured it out, or just something that you couldn't live without?
Yeah, I think that the biggest one that people are always like, you use that, is libraries.
Yes.
I think that I don't actually know a single other person who actually uses the libraries feature.
Me.
But to me,
I use it.
do you? Okay, great. Yeah. So there's someone who does. I think that my coworkers might laugh because YouTube has like an in-house brand palette. And in my first like week of working there, one of the first things I did was like make the in-house brand palette into a library where like I named all of the colors, like what their color names are at work, because it is the easiest way, going over here and being like, okay, you're right, like changing from this is the pink I gotta use, here's my orange or whatever. I used to just like put them on the drawing or whatever, right. But then I would start to lose them. And so this is also a good way. I work between multiple computers a lot. Sometimes I'll have to log in somewhere else and be like, oh shit, like I don't have my color palette. And now I can like just log into my cloud, my like Adobe cloud or whatever, and all of my libraries are there with all of these like really crazy, like different things that I use or don't use that have completely random names like girlfriends. So I think, this is definitely one of my favorites. I mean, I think that I've recently started using, this is something that everyone knows is there, but I have recently started using the symmetry tool quite a bit, realizing that it is like, because I used to just be like a diehard, okay, cool, like I used to just be like a diehard draw the thing, copy, paste in place, flip, like merge sort of user, which is like not helpful. But yeah, now that I've discovered that, I also brought it over to Illustrator, which I use quite a bit. And tried to figure out how to use mirroring over there, which I'm still getting the hang of. It's a little bit more difficult. But I think that, that's definitely like a super useful thing for me.
Bruce is mentioning that you can actually even apparently use brushes in libraries, which I did not know was a thing.
Yeah, brushes and images. You can put like a whole picture in there. So sometimes I'll throw the like picture I pixelated into it. So
I do a whole library. I actually was giving this recommendation out to someone recently. I do a whole library just for social icons. So if I ever need to put like an Instagram icon or a Twitter icon, or like even with it down here with the chelseabeck.psd Instagram, that was just from like a library that I grabbed. That way I don't have to go to sketchy like vector websites to just pull them down every now and then.
Awesome. I love that for you.
Well, thank you for sharing this with us. I really appreciate it. Thank you for sharing your work, your inspiration. We're just at about time. I know you said that you have a book coming out in 2025, which is about 2 years out from now. Is there anything that you're working on that you're excited about that you want to promote or push? And where can we continue to follow your journey online?
Yeah, I mean, I think that I'm always working on, YouTube Doodles. Always going to be posting those on my Instagram, which you can clearly see below. That Tumblr full of sketches. I'm going to try and keep that updated. I think I really want to be able to post things at a place that doesn't feel as permanent as my Instagram. So that's just Chelsea Beck or tumblr.com/Chelsea Beck, I think. And anywhere else, Twitter, all those things are linked everywhere else. So yeah, I mean, I'm around.
Yeah, fantastic. Well, we'll make sure that everyone gives you a follow. Thank you again for coming on, and excited to see whatever work comes up next. I'll be keeping my eye out on those YouTube Doodles too, to be like, is that Chelsea? Is that Chelsea?
Beautiful. Thank you so much.
But thank you again, and we hope to talk to you again soon.
Yeah, I had an awesome time. Bye, everyone.
And bye, Scribble. All right, guys. That's it for Chelsea's show, but we do have Matt and Meg's coming up in just about 5 minutes. I will be logging off right now. We'll take a little break, and then we'll be back. If you stick around, it'll automatically push you over to it. And they have a really great animation presence on YouTube as well. So I guess today is just the big YouTube day. But thank you to everyone that was in the chat saying hello, both on YouTube and on Behance. Thank you to Annika for being a wonderful moderator, as always. And make sure you guys stick around to see what's up next. Thanks for watching.
Yeah, that was about an hour and a half.